Week 2 of the World Climate Talks have now kicked off in Copenhagen. These next 5 days are considered crunch time for these international talks. They will be critical in determining what kind of climate agreement, if any, can come out of the gathering of 192 nations. This afternoon, Clean Sky's Susan McGinnis is in Copenhagen at the Bella Center with more.
World climate talks stalled today here in Denmark. Talks were thrown into major disarray when the Africa group, backed by the G77 nations, basically revolted over what's being talked about here and when. Let's bring in Clean Skies News executive editor Margaret Ryan for a little bit more insight. So, Margaret, they were basically concerned that developed nations are trying to kill the Kyoto Protocol.
That's specifically what they said. The chair of the Africa group, who is the negotiator from Algeria, said, look, they're setting a new world order and they're trying to put up a new colonialism. I mean, the divides here are so very deep, the suspicions involved. What happened this morning was the agenda that was set was all about issues on what's called the parallel track. And that's outside of the Kyoto Protocol. That's the attempt to bring the U.S. and the emerging nations into some kind of system where they will all cut down their carbon emissions. And that's in addition to the Kyoto Protocol. But in this case, the Africa group saw it as excluding the Kyoto Protocol. They said, look, we think what will happen is we'll get to Friday and you'll say, oh, wow, we were talking about the, the parallel track. We just didn't have time for the Kyoto Protocol. And the developed world is really trying to subtly kill it.
And with the Kyoto Protocol being the developing world's biggest interest, is their concern legitimate here?
Well, I think in some ways it is, because of course the Kyoto Protocol is everything they want. It says that the developed world is responsible for climate change. It owes them for damages. They don't have to do anything. In fact, it entitles them to go ahead and develop and to emit more carbon while the developed world, ratchets down. Now you have the U.S. and the EU now all saying, wait a minute, things have changed since Kyoto. We cannot possibly ratchet down carbon enough to stop climate change if we don't include the major emerging economies. They're just responsible for too much of this carbon now. We have to change that pattern. But the developing world, particularly in Africa, some of those very poor sub-Saharan countries say, nope, it isn't time to change it yet. We want the Kyoto Protocol. They really want the U.S. to join it.
Now, this move by the Africa group is very reminiscent of when you and I were reporting from Barcelona, when there was that dramatic move by the Africa group walking out of talks because they were not getting as much attention as they wanted to. A lot of folks called that a stunt. Do you see that a lot of that is happening here?
It's somewhat the same. It's very reminiscent of it, though. They did not say in the course of this that they were walking out. What they did was absolutely stall any further talks until the agenda was changed to suit them. And so everything kind of the formal talks were called off, new informal talks were started. It got them the attention they wanted. We know all day today scheduled press conferences have been canceled because people just don't know basically what's going on. The main thing you see in Barcelona, you see here, is this deep sense of grievance. And this real sense that these people say, we're the victims of this, and you people who owe us are going to come up with the money.
And now another thing we're seeing in this second week of talks is this avalanche of interest in the negotiations. What's your take on what is driving this 45,000 registrations?
That's right. Well, part of it is NGOs. They sense that there's, it's going to be a big uphill push to get an agreement by Friday. And I think some of them just want to bring more and more people in, as though that is going to make the difference. Also, we understand today from the conference organizers, world leaders, we have 115 of them coming. The number's been going up. And every one of them is bringing his or her own entourage. Some of them are bringing their own photographers. They're bringing quite a few people. So a lot of the registration numbers got pushed up sheerly by that.
Right. It's all certainly raising the momentum, I guess.
It certainly is.
All right, Margaret Ryan, thanks for that.
Thanks, Susan.
Also, another major event here today at World Climate Talks in Copenhagen featuring Energy Secretary Steven Chu. Now, Chu announced a new initiative to promote clean energy technologies in developing countries. It's called Climate Ready. He also talked a bit today about when government should step in when it comes to investing in research and development.
We're also coordinating globally to drive innovation. We're working through the MEF Global Partnership to coordinate more deeply research, development, and innovation that comes out of research laboratories, universities, and companies into demonstration and deployment. We want to be part of the grease of facilitating this development through information sharing. We're pursuing collaborations with China, India, the Americans, and many other countries, bilateral agreements, including investments of large sums of money. And we're focusing on innovative technologies, so the crucial development to crucial in developing world to promote building a clean and energy efficient structure.
Also arriving in Copenhagen today, former Vice President Al Gore. He sat in on a panel today talking about Greenland's melting ice sheet. Greenland's premier was there, also the Danish and Norwegian foreign ministers. Gore said today that there's new data that suggests a 75% change in the entire Arctic polar ice cap, that it may disappear during the summers in as few as 5 to 7 years from now. Also, Denmark's foreign minister says there's a new study for the Arctic Council that shows Arctic ice is melting twice as fast as expected from the last study that it did back in 2004. Norway's foreign minister came out and said that for the first time, this study confirms that Antarctic ice is also a net loser. So certainly a full day here in Copenhagen, and you can't really call the first day of the second week over, because while it is late evening here in Copenhagen, the first national leaders are arriving tomorrow. Some are changing their plans, led by UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown. He is coming in tomorrow, arriving earlier than planned, and some expect negotiations to go into the night tonight very late, with pressure really on for ministers and negotiators to have all their ducks in a row before national leaders start arriving later in the week. Reporting from Copenhagen from World Climate Talks, I'm Susan McGinnis, Clean Skies News.
A very full day there, Susan. Thank you.